The Sandy and Toddcast is a MindgardenMedia podcast in association with
Screw You, Todd
Productions.
Broadcasting from two very different yet magical places not found on any map. Get ready to discuss the strange, weird, ghostly, crazy, spooky, and odd things that take place around us each and every day. All while having a little bit of fun. This is the Sandy and Toddcast.
Welcome back to the Sandy and Toddcast. She is Sandy.
It's Todd.
This is season 13, episode 7. And do we name these anymore? I don't think we really do.
I name them after the fact.
Good.
I always name them. That's all. I'm going to take credit for that one.
Good.
Some of them are pretty funny. Like last week's was, hang on, it's going to be a bumpy ride or something like that.
I would have named it, Don't Let the Door Hit You on the Way Out. So last week we were pretty spirited. We just got some stuff off our chest, and we actually basically said in the podcast, listen, if this bothers you, bye. And we had somebody say bye, and we're okay with that. So
and we waved bye back.
We did.
I'm not angry.
No.
We said if this is not okay with you, then that's your prerogative, just like it's our prerogative, right?
Yep.
To air our thoughts and our opinions, because in the end, whether you're political or quote unquote apolitical, you still have thoughts and you still have a right to voice your opinion and voice your thoughts. And that's what hopefully will continue to be what makes America, is that we can tell how we feel. And it was interesting, Todd, because aside from the one listener, we received a few emails, some messages, some comments supporting how we feel, or at least supporting our right to get that off our chest.
Yeah. And listen, we're not going to be talking about that every week. That's not what this is about.
No.
So don't think that. So we move on and we get back to some stuff that we are actually going to talk about last time, but we got off on our tangent and didn't get back on track. So
it was so funny because I was like, we're not going to talk about politics. You're like, yes, we are. And then we were off and running.
That was it. That was it.
But I think it was good for us too. And I also think it was good for a lot of our listeners. Like I said, we got a lot of good feedback. And I just want to thank Scott for sending us an email in support of the podcast.
Thank you, Scott.
And Chris, our dear friend Chris, who messages, actually, we're going to go through a question that Chris had today.
All right.
And Marilyn and Deej sent me an email. And I mean, it's great. A message. Deej sent me a message, and it's great that not that everybody necessarily agreed with us, even though they did, but they related to us.
Yeah.
And they understood it because they were going through the same things. So I feel good about it. So speaking of Chris, let's talk about a question that Chris had. And I'm so sorry. Chris actually sent me this message on October 31st on Halloween. And this is you know how slow we are.
Yeah.
And this is the first that we've been able to do it. So I'm just going to read it. Chris is referring in this to our last podcast. She says, "Hey, Sandy, just wanted to let you know the latest podcast was great. You guys have a good way of answering questions. It is so real and from the heart. I thought of a cool topic recently. The difference between exploring ideas and blindly following a friend group. TikTok has some people talking about things at a surface level, and this could potentially harm an uninformed individual. Like, for example, witchcraft. Just reading a paragraph and doing a ritual without the knowledge behind it can backfire. Intent always matters, but sometimes it can be trumped by inexperience or negative spirit, dark energy, opportunism. Just a thought." I love that.
Yeah.
And I think that that's true. We've kind of touched on that, I think, over the years. That my first belief is it's great to learn from other people. It's great to learn from other groups, from other things that you see. However, I think you can cross that line in your inexperience and start believing and depending on the things that you see. My example would be Ghost Adventures.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Because Ghost Adventures, you've got 12-year-olds watching Ghost Adventures. You've got 13-year-olds watching Ghost Adventures. You've got 28-year-olds watching Ghost Adventures. And a lot of them are inexperienced and don't understand it. And when they see it, it's exciting. It's a little scary. And so sometimes you tend to form opinions based on that show and what you see, and not so much on your own experience or a certain amount of research that you can do on your own. And so that's why a lot of times when friends or acquaintances that I know have kids who are teenagers who are really into the paranormal, and they watch shows like Ghost Adventures and they want to go ghost hunting, and I always embrace that in a way where I'll say, let me talk to them. Let me take them. Let me show them how to do it the right way so that they're not just blindly following. And I think if you give them that opportunity, it may actually cut down on the amount of misinformation that's taken in by them.
Yeah.
And so I think it's so hard. I mean, I love exciting stuff. Don't get me wrong. But by the same token, exciting stuff can also be dangerous if you're doing it and you don't know, but it just looks cool. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yep.
So I just feel like education is the key. It's hard to stop them in this world of social media, and they're not on there because they're boring. They're on places like TikTok and Instagram, and they're on there because people think it's exciting.
Yeah.
And they think that's how it is. And I'm telling you that that's not how it is. And you and I know for a fact that how many investigations have we been on where we've sat in a place for hours and nothing happened?
Yeah.
That's what it is. That's what a lot of it is.
Or you leave it, or you leave an investigation and you have stuff continuing after you leave because you didn't set intentions correctly and you didn't protect yourself. I mean, you know, or you do investigations and the humans are the crazy ones that you're afraid of, you know, from being there. So yeah, it's not as dramatic as one might think in any way, shape, or form.
No. And you know, you bring up intentions again, and I'm just like, I believe fully in intentions, but I don't trust intentions completely if I'm not comfortable in and of myself doing something. I don't want to touch witchcraft, to be honest with you, because I don't know that I would really have to learn from someone who I trust and understand if that was my thing. If that's something that I was interested in, and I'm interested in learning about it, but I'm not so much interested in practicing it. But if you're interested in something about that, you should seek out the people that have a good reputation, that you can trust, that can show you the right ways to do things. Because intention is not easy. Like, intention is something that you have to put knowledge and a certain amount of self-confidence behind when you are doing these things. You know, I think back to a couple of years ago, and you and I were doing, I can't remember what we were doing meditation for, but we were doing some meditations, and we had our wands, and we were, you know how we do our intentions off into the universe. And, you know, you really have to understand what you're doing and what the consequences of it could be before you just jump into something. And so blindly following what your friends are doing or what you see on TikTok or on TV, it can get you into real trouble. And so you have to trust yourself enough to take that journey yourself. And then if you want to join a group or be part of a group, that's great. But you shouldn't put all your eggs in one basket just by following something blindly without understanding what you're doing for yourself. Does that make sense?
I think so. I do. And I think, as with any journey, your journey's different from somebody else. So find the stuff that, I mean, you say, for instance, that you are not interested necessarily in witchcraft, but you have crystals and you have a wand and you have stuff, so there's pieces of that. It can all lend itself to other areas, and
yeah.
I mean, listen, witchcraft is no more dangerous than believing blindly in any other religion or anything like that.
Not at all. Not at all. And it's not to knock anything such as witchcraft, because I have immense respect. We have friends who are witches. I have immense respect for them and what they do, but I don't know enough about it at this point to just blindly say, here, let me get a book or let me look on Google to see about a spell and perform the spell. You know what I mean? I guess I have too much respect for other practices and other ways of doing things to just say, here, let me Google this, or let me watch how they do this on TikTok, and I'm going to try and do it myself, because that's where you get in trouble.
Yeah, you might be able to rewire a light switch by watching a YouTube video, but some of the other stuff, maybe not. So there you go.
I mean, do you really want to take that chance? I don't even want to rewire a light switch.
Well, listen, knowing you, absolutely not.
See? And I agree with you on that. So that's where we are with that. But that was a great question, Chris. Great topic, great thought. And I totally agree with you. It can be very dangerous. And that's why, I don't go in provoking the hell out of, the spirits in a location. And maybe that's why I don't get possessed every time. But I don't know. It's like.
And if you are going in because you want to get possessed, maybe you should change your mind about that.
Maybe you should email Zach Baggins and ask him what he thinks. I don't know.
I had a corporate meeting on Wednesday that I had to drive to, and the drive was like 2 hours to get to the location. And I was going with a coworker who's also a very good friend. And we were talking about we were talking about the podcast. Oh, and I got to tell the story. She goes, well, tell me a little bit more about Sandy. Who's this Sandy? And I'm telling her stories, and I'm like, well, this is how we became friends. And,
Oh, you didn't tell her that I stalked you.
I did. And,
oh my God.
Yeah. And then, I told her, I said, and love and light, love and light, love and light. But here's a woman who danced on Ed Gein's grave, and walked into the black mist. So I got to tell the whole Sandy story.
Oh my God. I can't believe, I wish it wasn't your version, because my version is so different.
It is different because you lie. Your version is a complete, utter lie.
I do not lie. You just misunderstand everything that happened.
Right. Yes, I misunderstood you doing a moonwalk on Mother Gein's grave.
I did not moonwalk on her grave. I kind of did.
Well, it's kind of a white woman moonwalk, but yes, you did.
I tap danced, though. I think I shuffled off to Buffalo.
I think that's what it was. It was a shuffle off to Buffalo.
I did
It was a kickball change.
Listen, after what she did to me when I touched that stupid stone, I'm telling you.
I told her that story, too, about how you were getting so emotional with that. So she didn't.
Oh, my God.
I don't think she wanted us there. Do you?
No. I will tell you this. That terrified me. Like, that changed a lot for me, because Todd, that was like such a it was like, okay, I don't know if I told this story, but Dave and I were in Savannah. We've been there a couple times. We were in Savannah in 2016, I think it was. And we decided we wanted to go visit a couple wineries, which there aren't many wineries.
That's weird.
In the Savannah area. We literally had to drive an hour and a half for one and an hour for another. And so we went to this first one, and it was, please forgive me if I get the name of it wrong because it was so long ago, but I think it was like Watermelon Creek Winery.
Okay.
Wonderful people. Wonderful people. We were talking to them. We did the tasting. Well, Dave doesn't drink, so I did the tasting while Dave was there. And they actually, wine in the South is made differently than wine in the North or wine in the West. It's different. They use a different type of grape. So it is a very different flavor. I think it's called muscadine wine. And so we were doing the testing and we were talking to them, and they actually had ties to our area because they had submitted some of their wines in the Finger Lakes. And New York is very well known for the Finger Lakes and wine country. And so we were talking to them. We had lunch there and everything. And there was this one wine that I tried that was, I'm a sweet wine person. And this wine was so, they have like a sweetness percentage. And this wine was aged in such a way that it was a negative. And it was like an absence of like anything. It was almost like if wines could be a void, that was a wine. It was the driest wine and then some that I've ever tried in my life. And it was so dry that it was actually kind of good in a weird way. So I liken my experience to Augusta Gein's grave experience to be sort of like that. It was so, I felt when I touched the grave, I felt like emotionless, but like I was being sucked into a black hole. That kind of emotionless. Like there was nothing there. It was almost like loneliness and darkness and sadness, but without that emotion. It's hard to describe. But that was something that changed very much the way, because I remember just standing there and holding it, and tears were flowing down my eyes.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I'm like, why is this happening to me? And I took my hand off and I kind of recovered. You guys were like looking at me like, what the hell is wrong with her? And
which is not much different than the way Dave and I usually look at
normal.
you. Yeah.
You two are such big babies. And then I just put it back on to see what would happen, and it happened again. And I'm like, that I only left on for a few seconds. But yeah. So that really changed a lot for me. And the way that I understand that there is so much more that we don't understand. If that makes it, like, I understood now that there is so much we don't understand. Like, that is probably about as close to darkness as I've ever gotten.
Okay.
I've come across spirits that were jerks, but not like that. So, yeah. So I felt like that was my reaction, was to just dance on the grave, because I was like, screw you, Augusta, I guess, for doing that to me. I don't know. But yeah. So stop lying to people who don't know me.
I'm pretty sure she realized that I was not lying. So
such a jerk. But anyway, so yeah. So just, you have to trust in yourself, I guess. Trust in yourself to learn all you can and go on that journey by yourself first. And then find like-minded people who understand what your own particular journey is. Yeah. Don't watch Ghost Adventures.
Yeah. Avoid that if you can.
Don't become possessed every time you turn around. So, anyways, I did want to bring up one thing. I don't know if any of our friends, listeners, community has ever heard of Art Bell. Art Bell was around, I think he started in the late 80s. He was on the air, and he had a radio show. It was like in the middle of the night, wasn't it?
It was overnight. Yep.
And at one point over the years, he had 15 million listeners a night. And it was very paranormal / cryptid /
aliens.
aliens slash, just anything weird and out there related. And I remember when I was younger, I listened to a little bit here and there, but I didn't really appreciate it the way I've come to appreciate it later in life, especially now. And he had some amazing guests on there. Like people now, Todd, when you did Haunted State,
Yep.
you had Lloyd Auerbach,
Yes.
a parapsychologist, on your show. And I've always liked Lloyd Auerbach, but always thought that he leaned more on the true skeptic side of everything.
Yep.
I have been listening to a couple of Art Bell's shows. Now, okay, so Art Bell actually passed away in, I think, 2018. He stopped doing the original show. Then in, I think it was like 2013, he came back and did it under a little bit different name. And then on Sirius XM. Then he left because he wasn't getting along with Sirius XM and did an online one for a couple of years. And then he passed away. And so I've been listening to a lot of it. I heard one of the episodes he did with Lloyd Auerbach. And one thing I love about Art Bell is that he was like us. He had the same kind of questions that you and I would have. And it was 3 hours a night, and it was just so good. And he had every range of guests you can imagine. And so he had Lloyd Auerbach on. And in that one episode, he completely changed my opinion of Lloyd Auerbach. Now, Auerbach has been around for decades. He is a parapsychologist. He's very well known. He's done a lot of things that have a lot of merit to them. And like I said, I always felt like he was someone who sort of poo-pooed a lot of stuff and was hell-bent on, being that skeptic. And he's not, actually. He wasn't in this episode. This episode was, I don't know, several years ago, maybe 10, 12 years ago. And I realized that Lloyd Auerbach was actually a believer in a lot of things. He believes in mediums. He actually uses mediums himself for personal reasons. He has he takes a very black and white approach to everything, which I do appreciate because we're all skeptics at the core ourselves. But there is plenty of stuff that he believes in. So another one of the episodes that was with a priest, a former Jesuit priest named Malachi Martin. And he is pretty well known in the paranormal world, or was. He actually passed away in 1998 under somewhat mysterious circumstances. And he was a very, very well-known, he was a former Jesuit priest for about 25 years, well-traveled, very well-educated, was an archaeologist when he was first young, and then went into the priesthood. And he has done thousands of minor exorcisms. He was born in 1921. He died at the age of, I think, 78 in 1998. He fell off in his apartment. He fell off a ladder in the library. You know, those ladders that kind of slide back and forth. He fell off of one. And he didn't die right away, but it did him in. And there's a little bit of controversy around all of it and everything because of who he was and what he did. And he was talking a lot about, he was on with Art 7 times. So there's 7 interviews with Martin. And after 25 years as a Jesuit priest, he's very holy, very belief in the Catholic religion and everything. But he decided he could do more by becoming not even a lay priest, but once you're a priest, you're always a priest. And he had to get permission from the Pope to leave the Jesuits because you have to take a lot of extra oaths when you become a Jesuit priest. And so he was released from most of those, and he went on to do a lot of public relations work and write books. But over the years, he did a lot of exorcisms, and we always talk about the demonic and what happens. And so I just thought this was very interesting. So I just want to share with you guys just a few things that Malachi Martin did tell Art on the first interview that I was watching. And this was his first interview with Art Bell, 1996. So this was a few years before. It was either 1998 or 99 that he passed. Maybe it was 99. A few years before he passed away. So Father Martin, or Dr. Martin, very well educated, he did thousands of minor exorcisms over the years, and he did hundreds of major ones. And in the Catholic Church, he said that if you believe that someone might need an exorcism, they take it very seriously in the Catholic Church. They first have to be checked physically and mentally to make sure that physically there's nothing wrong, mentally there's nothing wrong. So they use two different psychiatrists that don't necessarily believe in God to have them checked out. If they can show that there's nothing wrong with them in those two ways, then they'll move forward. He said in this interview in 1996 that in his experience, about 80% of the ones that were brought to the Catholic Church, in his own experience, were actual possessions.
Wow.
Yeah. Can you believe that? And within the first 20 minutes of beginning an exorcism, he said you would know for sure whether it was an actual possession or not. Now, he calls the stage where they would need an exorcism to be called an obsession. So in other words, if you're in need of an exorcism, you are obsessed, is what they call it.
All right.
This is where the demon, now in his experience, in his thoughts, I don't want to say in his opinion, but there really are only two real demons. That would be Lucifer and Satan, who are two different demons. A lot of people use that interchangeably, but he says they are two separate demons. So if you can be exorcised, if the demon can be exorcised out of you, that would be obsessed. There is such a thing as a perfect possession. And that means that they've already come into possession and there is nothing that can be done for them. So they have been completely taken over by the demon, and that they're at peace. That's the term he used, that they're at peace. And he says that there are a lot of them in this world and that they walk among us. So I thought that was very interesting, because if you're at peace, if you're perfectly possessed, you are living at peace. There's no struggle within because you've already been taken, and that these people walk among us. He says that in his opinion, from what he's seen, well over 50% of the cases treated by psychiatrists for psychiatric problems are actually a possession being attempted. So it's in the process.
See, isn't that exactly what I've told you before? Like, I'm worried about that for people who have quote unquote mental problems.
That's what made me, our previous discussions, that's what made me start. I actually took notes because I was like, this is like a lot of what you and I have talked about before. How much of this is actually some sort of attempt by evil to take over? And I'm not saying all of it is.
Right.
But he says well over 50% of the cases that he's seen treated by psychiatrists for the psychiatric problems are indeed a possession being attempted. And there's such a thing, I thought this was interesting, Todd, generational possession. So the same demon can inhabit the members of the same family for different generations. Now, it's not passed down by blood or DNA. It's actually consensual. So like a great grandmother could make some sort of pact with the demonic. And part of that pact, and he's seen it, could be that like the third in line for, their child's daughter would be the next one that it inhabits, and so on and so forth. And I never heard that term before, and I thought that was so interesting. And that he sees it. He sees it going down in the families. It's not, you're not born into it, but you're actually generationally, it passes down. So this demon can jump from one to the other, and you've given it permission. Now, he says that you can't be possessed unless in some form, some way, you are okay with it. You've invited it. You have asked for it, or you have allowed it to do what it does to you. That if you are not allowing it, it can't do it. You're inviting it. I think we've heard that kind of a thing.
Well, I think, a lot of people who have dealt with that have been in situations where whether they were playing with Ouija boards or they invited something to contact them, or, like Ghost Adventures, come into me and possess me or whatever, right? I mean,
yeah.
That's pretty much, even in the movies, that's how we're taught that possessions can take place.
Right. And I guess, too, it also makes me think about the people who are so depressed and so down that almost in a way, that's consensual, because that's like, I couldn't get any lower. I need someone.
I'm giving up.
Something.
I'm giving up.
Giving up.
Yep.
And that's, I have to tell you, after listening to him, I'm warning you, after listening to him, I'm sitting there going out loud. I'm going, I do not give anyone permission. Like, literally, I know it sounds funny, but I'm literally like, I do not accept that. I do not. I'm saying it because, talk about intention. I'm just like, there is no way, that I would ever be okay or allow that. I would never, that would not be okay for me.
Right.
I mean, that's just not something I don't want to, it makes you a little paranoid. Like, are my thoughts able to be, read to the point where if I'm not, but I know that's overthinking it, but, I wonder how many other people listen to these things and get like that. Like, I in no way give it permission ever, I don't know. But I just thought that was interesting. And one last point that he said, that anyone, because Dave asked me about this, it's so ironic. The day before I listened to this, Dave and I were watching Ryan Buell from Paranormal State. He does webinars, and we watch some of his webinars and stuff. And he was talking about demonic. One of his latest series was about the demonic. And Dave said to me, can anyone do a exorcism, perform the rites of exorcism, like say you're not Catholic, then what? And I said, well, I'm not really sure. I'll have to look into it. And the next day I listened to this. And so Father Martin said that anyone, not just Catholics, can become possessed. So it's not just about the Catholics. It's about anyone. And Catholic priests can and do perform the rites of exorcism on non-Catholics and on non-believers. They have been known they can do it. Although he says that usually it's preferred that it's someone of your own particular religion. But what about people who are non-believers who can do that? So it was just so interesting to listen to him. And so there are 7 interviews that he did with Father Martin. And it wasn't just about exorcism. It was about all kinds of things. And if you're the least bit interested in learning, if you're not Catholic, I mean, I was kind of raised Catholic, even though I don't consider myself to be a practicing Catholic per se. I lost a lot of trust in the church over the years, but the church and Catholicism are a little bit different.
Yeah.
But even if you're just interested in learning about different religions, I highly recommend listening to the 7 Art Bell, Malachi Martin interviews. They're long. It'll be a project. You could do it over the winter, but they're really, really good. And it taught me a lot and made me think a lot about things. And isn't that, what it's all about? It's about thinking and learning.
It is. And can you post those links or whatever?
I will. They're on YouTube, and there's a couple. I'm going to post one I'm going to post two. One has all 7 of the interviews on it, and one is strictly Art Bell episodes. There's like a gazillion of them, and you can pick and choose which ones you listen to. But they're so interesting, and I'm so glad that I found Art Bell again. Like I said, I listened years ago, but I didn't appreciate his stuff like I do now at this stage in my life. And so I just thought it was fascinating. And he does all kinds of stuff, mystery stuff, missing people, all kinds of cool stuff. And I guarantee you're going to get hooked because it was just great. And I will put both of those links, those YouTube links, in our show notes for this week so that everybody can check them out if you want to. So
excellent.
Yeah. So I thought that was interesting because exorcism is so mysterious and nobody wants to talk about it, but it's there. And for many years, the Catholic Church was very hush-hush about it. They wouldn't say anything about it. But now they're a little more lax in it, and there's a little bit more information out there. But I was told years ago, and I think this is true, that every Catholic diocese has at least one exorcist, one person trained in the rites of exorcism, which is a little scary and a little comforting all at the same time.
Yeah.
So Art Bell.
Sounds good.
All right. So we got a lot of stuff into this little episode.
We did. And our next episode will be episode 8, and then season 13. Lucky season 13 will be done.
Yeah, we'll be done. It wasn't a bad season. It was pretty lucky.
You think so? I don't know. Look at the election results. I don't know if it was all that lucky.
Well, I just mean the season itself was pretty lucky, not the election.
All right, okay. I'm just saying.
I knew we weren't going to talk about it. But...
Well, I'm not.
Anyway, I'm just terrified. Wait till season 14.
Yeah, right.
I'm terrified to see what we're going to be going through.
All right. So look for those links on the posts and all that kind of stuff. And stick around, tell a friend about us, all that good stuff. So
and we appreciate all of you who stuck around with us. We love you. It's our community. What can you say? We all go through it, and we love y'all.
All right. So until next time, it's Sandy and Todd, and bye.
Bye.